Kathryn Thompson was having a great morning with her son, who was then in second grade.
The sun is shining and it was just a beautiful day. And I'm holding his hand and he looked up at me lovingly. And I just had this thought, like, you don't normally walk him to the bus stop. I'm normally down at the bottom of the hill with the baby, just being like, hurry, you're going to miss the bus, and yelling at him while he runs. And I don't have a bra on. And I think he probably didn't even have fruit with breakfast. It was, he ate cereal and that was it. And I just was feeling consistently like a failure. But as in this moment where I had this amazing day, I'm walking him to the bus, I'm wearing a bra. I had gotten up early and made him a healthy breakfast. Like, it was the perfect day. And in the perfect moment, this voice inside my brain was saying, you're an imposter. You're not a good mom. This is a one-time thing. Tomorrow you're going to suck again. Right. So I hear this voice in my head. It was like really like a tangible voice, and something just snapped inside and I got so mad. I'm like, why can't I just enjoy this success right now? Why do I have to be reminded of every time I've ever fallen short right in the moment when I should be feeling joy about what I'm accomplishing in this moment? And the words came into my mind at the time, drops of awesome. And I thought, that's not even really grammatically correct. Like, what is that? It should be drops of awesomeness or something. And I just had this visual image in my head of this bucket and everything that I was doing that was good that morning, that day, that week, being these little drops that were being added into this bucket that represented who I was and what really mattered, which was, it's the positive things. It's not what's not there. It's what is there. And what am I doing that's making a difference in the world and with my kids?
This is the How She Moms podcast with Whitney Archibald. I'm a mother of 5 on a mission to help moms connect with your kids, manage your homes, and create your own unique version of motherhood. I curate ideas from different moms so you can pick and choose what works for you and your family. That day at the bus stop was a turning point for Kathryn.
I dropped him at the bus stop and I started walking back down the hill. And the whole way down, I just started listing in my head every positive thing I had done that morning. And I'd think of it and then I'd say, that's a drop of awesome. That's a drop of awesome. And by the time I got back down to my house, there was this old Halloween wrapper on the front porch that had been there for months. And I stepped over that Tootsie Roll wrapper probably hundreds of times. And every time I'd step over it, I'd be like, oh, we got to get this yard cleaned up. I've got to sweep this porch. Our porch is so gross. And I would step over the wrapper and I'd go in the house because I think I don't have 2 hours to
do it all
the outside of my house. And because I'd been walking down listing each little thing that had contributed to me and my family's happiness, I saw the Tootsie Roll wrapper and I was like, I could pick up just that one thing. Honestly, this front porch is not that bad. If I just picked up that one wrapper, it would make a total difference. I picked up the wrapper and I just said, like, out loud, drop of awesome, and I went and threw it in the trash. And it was just such a tiny thing, but then it made me so much more motivated to try to improve and do good things in my life and with my family when I knew that doing so would become a celebration rather than doing it and having it remind me of all the times I hadn't done something that I should have done. So it was even like I've got this baby and I know I'm like, I don't even have time to empty the dishwasher right now. She has needs. So I would go to the dishwasher as I walked through the kitchen and I'd put one dish away and I'd think drop of awesome. And all day long, like every little thing I did, it was like evidence that I was gathering of the person I was. And you start to find out in that experience that when you're doing something good and your motives are good, in that moment, you can become the person that you've always wanted to be.
Today, Kathryn is going to tell us more about how she overcomes her self-doubt using this simple yet profound skill of gathering drops of awesome. She'll also talk about a few more tools to stop self-judgment, such as meditation, positive psychology, apologizing, going to therapy, and just moving forward. We'll cover a lot of ground. Kathryn first wrote about drops of awesome 10 years ago. A friend of mine had read it back then, has thought about it ever since, and mentioned it to me recently, so I looked it up. As I read it, I just kept thinking, can she read my mind? Of course, I emailed Kathryn immediately and invited her on the podcast. And throughout the whole conversation, I kept wanting to jump out of my chair and say, same! Case in point.
I tend to compare myself to myself. So if I'm working out, I think you're being so selfish. You should be with your kids right now, helping them with their schoolwork. Why are you working out? Or if I'm working in my house, getting my house clean or playing with my kids, I think, your friends are out right now doing a really hard workout and you should be doing that. You're so lazy. You're just sitting here playing with your kid. So it was like, it didn't matter what I was doing. If there was something else that I could conceivably doing that would be good, my brain would focus on the thing I could be doing that I wasn't doing. So I just decided to only try to focus on the good.
And then there was this. This is so me, and probably some of you fellow overachievers out there as well.
My husband and I went to see First Man, the movie about Neil Armstrong. And we're sitting in the theater, and Neil Armstrong is taking off on the Apollo mission to go to the moon. And as the shuttle lifts off, I notice I'm crying and I'm feeling really emotional. And Dan leans over and he's like, "Are you really excited about the moon landing? Like, why are you crying?" And I said, "I just realized I don't think I'm ever going to space." And he said, "What?" And I said, my whole life, I have this intense optimism about what my potential is. So I always feel like the only reason I'm like Lady Catherine de Bourgh, like the only reason I'm not good at piano is because I never practiced. But if I had, I would be amazing at piano. Like I always have this idea that I can do literally anything and my potential is limitless. I just have to try harder, which is a really cool trait to have. I honestly, like up till a few years before we saw the movie, I would think I would love to go to space. I just have to go get like a PhD in engineering and then like go to CrossFit and get super fit and do all these, not be claustrophobic and figure out all these things. And I'm like, and then I'll go to space. Like I could be the first 40-year-old astronaut who started training when she was 40. Like this is going to be amazing. I can do this. So when I'm watching him go up in space, and it just hit me like, you really are probably past the age that you can do all of those things. And it just made me really deeply sad. And Dan's like, "I do not have any context to comprehend why you feel like this." And I'm like, this is also my greatest problem in life because I'm constantly thinking of what my potential is, what I could do with the knowledge I have and with the knowledge I could gain to get better at everything. So every day there's this feeling of pressure that I'm falling short of my amazing potential. Like, why am I not on the moon right now? Why am I not a perfect mom? Why am I not super fit? Why am I not all of these things that I wish I could be? So that's just sort of a little bit about the way my brain works. Like I watch So You Think You Can Dance and think, I should start learning to dance so that I can go on this. And then when I turned 30, I was so sad because I'm like, oh, I think they don't let people over 30 go on. So You Think. I don't dance at all, like at all. But I just thought like, I'm going to get a personal trainer. I'm going to learn how to do it. I'm going to win this show. And he's like, what? So I always just feel like I could do anything. And if I'm not doing anything and everything, I'm not trying hard enough.
Kathryn Thompson just has a way with communicating some of the universal feelings of motherhood. Am I doing enough? Am I enough? Soon after she wrote the Drops of Awesome post,
I was at the gym because I was working out because I'm awesome. And there were some of my friends there. And everywhere I went for like 2 weeks after I wrote it, I would have people I didn't even know from the community come up to me and people start crying. I mean, the crying was, let's not exaggerate. It wasn't like tons of people were crying, but I had multiple people come up to me in public places and start talking about it and start crying and say, I felt so seen. I thought I was the only one who does this. Wow. And it was like everyone. And then I had a couple friends be like, wow, I can't even imagine doing that. I'm just really great with myself. And I thought, that's a gift. I mean, that is a huge gift. And I think it's more rare than you might. I mean, hundreds of emails and hundreds of thousands of shares. And every single person was just like, I feel like you reached inside my brain and saw how I was feeling and then just put it on the internet. And I think it's just super universal. Like I have, since that time, I find it everywhere. I find it in personal development books and blogs and church talks. And I mean, just everywhere I go, this theme has been there all along, but I had not heard it in a voice and in a way that resonated with me. So I would hear it and brush it off. That's for someone else. So I was able to word it in a way that for some reason really resonated with lots of other parents, specifically moms, which was awesome because it just built this community for me of I'm not alone. So many other people are dealing with this negative voice. It was so reaffirming to build community with people.
That is cool. Do you still struggle with any of those negative thoughts?
I often struggle with negative thoughts still to this day. And I think it's just the nature of being women and being mothers and caring so deeply about what you're engaged in that you just, if you care deeply and you want to do a good job, there's going to be times when you question, is everything I'm doing right now the most effective use of my time? And am I doing this great work that I have as a mother in a way that's going to benefit these children? They're human beings and I'm helping develop them. So it's a lot of pressure. It is far less now that I've been using this. It's been something that over time, as I continue to repeat it, it's basically a practice that I've had to go back to. And so if you in that moment are like, tonight I'm really going to spend time reading with my daughter and snuggling her, maybe I haven't done that in months. Maybe I've been too tired at night. I tend to have an off switch where I have endless patience until it is done for the day. And then I'm like, go away, get in bed now. I cannot talk to you.
Yeah.
But then if the next day I'm like, let's read today for 20 minutes and we'd sit and cuddle and read, or 5 minutes or like 2 minutes, right? I pick the shortest picture book there is and I say, let's read this book, and we have that cuddling moment. That's a memory for her. That's connection. And in that moment, I'm a mom who reads with her daughter.
Yeah,
So
and
it
it
really doesn't matter,
counts.
did I read yesterday? Yeah, it counts. And it doesn't disappear. And I think part of it too for me is that I have this fear that if I decide to pick up the Tootsie Roll wrapper or read to my daughter or be a really good listener about my husband's day when I don't know anything about code, I don't like, he's telling me the code things and I tend to just be like, yeah, blah, ones and zeros. I don't understand what you're saying. But if I have a day where I'm like, tell me about that, can you explain how that works more? And I really try to dig into it with him, then I'm a good listener in that moment. And you can only be a good listener by being a good listener and by trying it. And I don't have to be afraid, like, what if I read with her tonight and I don't have time tomorrow? Then it was all for nothing. No, I still have that moment and I still have that experience and we've grown closer. So not even thinking about it as being forever. Sometimes some of these things you need to try out, and I'm giving really basic things. I'm revealing a lot about myself, but some of the things I'll do as an experiment. I'll be like, I'm gonna get a drop of awesome and go for a run today. I don't run. So I go for a run, but I don't think I am now on a program of running and I'm going to run every day for the rest of my life. And if I don't do it in a week from now, I'm a failure. I can be like, oh yeah, I was one run healthier because I went this morning, I got up early and went for a run. It just became almost like a mantra and a chant. And it not only helped me feel better about what I was doing, but it was so motivational to do even the tiniest little thing. If I could visualize it, just adding to this like never emptying well of evidence of who I was. A big part of the practice that's helped is getting into mindfulness and meditation. And I feel like there's a big connection. Really, the most basic form of meditation that I've done goes back to the breath. And the whole process is this practice of no judgment. You're sitting for a space of time. You start with a couple minutes and you grow. Right now, I'm really, after 20 minutes, I struggle. So that's my limit at this point. But you sit and you're breathing and you're focusing either on your breath or on certain sensations. And the idea is that without judgment, to go back to that place whenever you stray away. So you're breathing and you're focusing on, what is my breath doing? And then suddenly you notice you're running through your to-do list or you're thinking about that show you want to watch tonight. And it's the thing is to not say, oh no, I'm supposed to be meditating, I'm going to use force to pull myself back. You just pause and it's just a super gentle reset. You just notice and you say, okay, I was thinking. So you just think, that was thinking. I'll go back to the breath now. And you just calmly and quietly go back to it. And I consistently feel that's my process for the practice of the drops of awesome thinking, is that when I notice I'm being hard on myself, I can get hard on myself for being hard on myself. I'm like, you are a published author 4 times. You have spoken to groups all over the country about this. You're an expert. What is wrong with you? And then I'm like, hold on. Nope. Like, that's not going to help anything. This is a practice and it's a lifelong pursuit. So I will just stop and calmly note, be like, oh, that's dangerous ground. I don't want to feel like that. Okay. So what, and then I'll immediately go and just start writing down some of the good things that I've done that day and just focus back on that. And it's just it's an instant get out of jail free card. It's an instant reset where I can't beat myself up about not even practicing my practice because that would be not practicing my practice. I say, okay, I'll be happier if I don't do that. And then I just start again. And it's like an instant relief. The only goal is to get back up again, right? When you fall down. That's
Oh,
really, it has to be the only goal.
yeah. And, history is history, right?
There is nothing that I can do better tomorrow by obsessing about what I did wrong yesterday. Like it will make nothing better about my life to agonize and beat myself up. And I think it's people that want to do good, right? I think it hits people the most who care the most and who have the best intentions. And I've watched other people who don't struggle with this at all, and I just think I don't even understand you. A breakthrough fairly recently, because this is all just thoughts in my head and like, oh, I think this. And so, I mean, I go and speak to people, but I always say, I'm not a psychologist. This is just what's helped me. I'm just sharing my personal experience. But the good news is there are psychologists who do this. So over the years, I've done a lot of reading of different psychologists and how they carry out philosophies similar to this. So one that's been really good is positive psychology. So a Martin Seligman is a good one to read. I really like Sean Achor. He's pretty funny. He has a great TED Talk out that gives sort of the basics of how positive psychology works. I've done enough research on this that I've gone to speak to college psychology classes about psychology. And I'm like, I'm not trained in this, but I can present it in a way that's going to be accessible to give them sort of like an introduction to what they're doing. The most recent one is a program by Kristen Neff. She has a book out called Self-Compassion, and it's like somebody did all the science and the research behind why I feel the way I feel and why this voice is going on in my head. And then they gave tangible steps and ways to help change the way that you think about yourself and how compassionate you are to yourself. I mean, things as simple as like taking time and breathing and trying to kind of stopping the cycle of the negative thoughts, just down to like things that might sound silly, like just self-soothing and comforting. Like if I feel like I just failed miserably at something, you have that Brene Brown sort of shame spiral going, right? So if I'm in one of those sort of shame spirals, I honestly like try to parent and talk to myself. It's, try to talk to yourself the way you would to your child or your best friend. And I will just sit and just kind of stroke my arm and be like, that was so embarrassing. You really let those people down. That's so frustrating. You feel bad. Like, and I'll talk myself through it and I'll just be like, it's going to be okay. And I just give myself this tenderness and compassion to say, like, you're a human being on a journey with this whole life experience. And this was a bad moment and it feels really bad. And you can experience feeling bad without it turning into something that's so consuming that it stops you from being able to progress. There's nothing that stops progress for me more than I can just spend hours days obsessing about something that I did that was hurtful rather than taking the steps to fix what I did or to heal the problem or to try to be better. It's in some ways really self-centered.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't really thought of it that way, about just how much energy we're expending when that energy could be applied to actual progress.
Yeah.
Right.
You're choosing like emotionally to pick yourself up and dust yourself off and be like, I will acknowledge that was bad. What can we do now? Like what's next?
Yeah.
And then if you're feeling that tenderness and acceptance from yourself, it has spilled out into every relationship I have, working with my teen and adult children, which is something I'm pretty new to. And I spent several months over the last year doing therapy about how to be a better parent to adult children. And I called up this therapist and I said, I don't have anything major bad going on. There's no crisis. I just don't know how to do this. And I need someone to help me do the things. I'm like, I've read all the books. I need someone to help me internally be able to do the things that I know are the right things for parenting an adult. And so we read some books together and we worked together, and it was just a day by day, week by week process of her talking me through it. But when I started reading about the self-compassion, it was like all the things we'd been trying to get me to be able to do to be more understanding and kinder to my adult kids and more patient when I was suddenly giving myself the grace of saying, you're not perfect. Like, you need to just recognize who you actually are, not who you think you could be. You're not Neil Armstrong. Who you are is beautiful and amazing. Um, but if you look at what your actual skill sets are and what you actually are capable of achieving, and then you give yourself love and mercy based around the reality of your life, I was able to extend that to my kids. It was just almost automatic once I was feeling it for myself. But when I am critical and unkind to myself and have unrealistic expectations, when my kids mess up, especially if they mess up in a way that I'm currently working on myself, I get so upset because
Yes.
I see mirrored my own failings, and I think this failing has caused me pain. I don't want it to
Right.
cause you pain.
Let's nip it in
So
the bud
because I
right
love you, I'm
now.
gonna berate you because I feel shame when I see them doing it. I think, did they inherit that from me? It has literally never worked for anyone ever to berate someone into compliance.
Yeah.
Not long term, not in a healthy way. So it's it's weird how this self work really translates to motherhood. I think my favorite experience sharing this message, I went to a high school class full of, it was mostly young women who were sort of at risk youth that had been pulled out of the traditional high school setting. And I went to two classes at the same high school that were the same group of kids. And one of them was amazing. And the other one, they just looked at me like, what are you talking about? But
Huh.
there was one, so it's not like universally it just always gets through. But there was this one that I went in and I started chatting to them about this. And I always talk about what you do today and who you are in this moment does not have to be determined at all by who you were yesterday. So I can decide to be a completely different person right now than I was yesterday. And I don't have to change everything about myself, but even changing one thing changes me in that moment. And so I was telling the girls this, and I said, I will identify myself a certain way, but the next day, if I take a different action, then that's not who I am anymore. This is who I am, and you can immediately change. And I said, a lot of them I feel like had come from really rough family backgrounds. And I said, you are not your parents. And I didn't know any of their parents. And I'm like, you don't have to do what they did. You don't even have to do what you did yesterday. You can make a completely different choice right now.
Yeah.
And one of the girls came up to me afterwards crying, and she said, when you say that, no one has ever said that to me before.
Oh,
But I get told all the time, you're just like your mom. You're going to end up just like your mom with this, her life. And she's like, I have believed that my whole life. This is the first time it ever occurred to me that I can make a different choice and do something different.
yeah, that
And
I'm
I
not my
thought,
mom. Wow.
I almost didn't say it because it felt so obvious, right? But in the moment, like just the thought came in, you should tell them they can have a totally different path than their parents. And I'm like, what is this? Are you stand and deliver? Like you don't, like that's so cliche. You don't need to say that to these girls, just because they come from a rough background. And I just thought, no, you should say this. And I said it, and it was like you could hear a pin drop. But I feel often very trapped by who I have been. Like people will always see me that way. That's just the way I'm seen, and I'm just kind of stuck in these patterns. And just even my husbands or my kids, I'm like, if I suddenly become, you know, Mary Poppins out of nowhere, they're gonna be like, come on, mom. But I found like more often than not, I'm the person least likely to give myself the freedom to change than
Yeah.
anyone else around me. If I'm making these changes, people generally are happy for me or like, oh, this is interesting. This is new Kathryn. Let's do this. And people are willing to go along with you for the ride. But I in my head have this idea that like everyone's got a perception of me and I can't deviate from that.
Yes. Even I don't even remember where I just read this, but or saw it or something. But somebody was saying like, oh, I'm not a hat person. And then somebody else put a hat on them. Look, now you're a hat person. You're wearing a hat, you're a hat person. Like we we feel like it's, tied to imposter syndrome and stuff like that. We feel like we can't change or claim certain things. But all you have to do to be that kind of person is to start being that kind of person.
Yeah. Yeah. And doing it no strings attached. I love experimenting. So I was just saying, like, I'm gonna experiment being a hat person. I'm gonna wear this today. I'm just going to own it and see how it goes, but not be like, I don't know if I want to change to being a hat person. Like, put on a dang hat. Just be a
Yeah.
hat person today. Chill
Yeah.
out.
I wanted to talk about the journaling component because I saw that you have a Drops of Awesome journal. Is that something that you started
Yeah.
doing? Did you start writing these down?
Yeah, there's a couple things I do, and I just write it in my notebook. Honestly, I don't use the Drops of Awesome journal, so it's possible to do this just on normal paper, but I don't do it every day. I do it when I need it. It's that returning to the breath thing. So when I notice that voice is becoming more dominant in my brain, then I will just get out a piece of paper and just start writing. It's almost like writing a done list. You just write all of the things that you're doing that are good and right. And it's kind of overwhelming, honestly, when you look at it. You can do a lot of good in the world and then focus on the one thing you didn't do.
Yeah.
But if you have it all written down, you're like, I didn't do this, but I did all of this today. Like, and they can be as simple as like like for my teenage girls, I'd be like made eye contact with my parents at dinner. Like that's your parents are gonna love that. It'll be a fun surprise if you look them in the eyes and tell them something about your day in an intentional way. So you just kind of write all those things down and you keep track of them. Honestly, just as helpful for me as I would have a page if I was having a challenge in a relationship in my family. If I was struggling with one of my kids, I would make a page for them and I would write everything I observed. So if I'm frustrated because there's a child who's not getting something done that they really should be doing or that is being disrespectful in some way, then I write down all of the things that are going well and everything that they do. And I end up usually just kind of being overwhelmed with the amazingness that is that child.
Oh my goodness, that takes it to a next level
Yeah.
to keep track of their
Yeah.
Drops of Awesome. And then do you show it to them?
I have never shown it to them. Part of me thinks I don't know that I necessarily want them to know that I have to do a journal exercise to love them right or to see through the noise.
But
But I mean,
just to say, like,
you start
look what I noticed today. Look how awesome you are. This is what I
look who
noticed
you
today.
are.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll tell them small things
that's good.
that I noticed like here and there. I'll be like, I noticed this like yesterday. Um my 17-year-old son, like there's just so many things that we're just not connecting with. I feel like, and it's like you have the potential to do this.
Yeah.
Why is this what you're
Yes.
choosing, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that was one thing that I talked with my therapist about. She said, never talk to him about his potential again, like in that way. She's like, if you talk to him about his potential in a hopeful, like, oh, there's so many good things you can do in your life, and I believe in you, that's one thing. But you basically telling him you're falling short of who you could be, that is never going to be helpful. So she's like, just stop with the potential. Never,
Yeah.
never bring that up to him again because it's not healthy. It's very stressful to him, and I keep talking about like because he's a senior, and like, do you want to, what are you going to apply? And he's like, he doesn't want to. And my thought yesterday, I said to my husband, I'm like, if he doesn't have if he's not going to apply, maybe he needs a year to think about what he wants to do and apply when he's ready to. But it can't be something that we're forcing through, right? Like
Yeah.
he has to really care for himself. So I'll help him, but it's more, yeah. I just have these expectations like, well, you could, because he's so amazing. He's just this most amazing kid. So I'm like, you could do all of this, and you're playing Smash Bros. Why? But we were driving in a car together yesterday, and he's telling me about plans he had with his friends and what they did, and he's like, oh mom, I just read the most amazing middle grade book by Gary D. Schmidt. You will love it. You will cry. It's not sad, but it's just, I said, is it really tender? He goes, yeah, you have to read it. You promised me you're going to read this right away. And I was like, if I'm not looking for those drops of awesome, I could be frustrated that he was late for school in the morning and that he doesn't want to talk about college and all of these things. And I'm like, how many women are sitting in a car getting like contemporary middle grade, thoughtful, emotional novels recommended to them by their 17-year-old son? Like, that is 1,000 drops of awesome. But if
Yeah.
you're not looking to capture that stuff, sometimes that can go by and just the emergency of the moment or whatever's the noisiest thing can just take up so much space in your brain and your heart.
Yes. So have you taught them this Drops of Awesome concept?
Yeah, we have talked about it quite a bit. I think It would be easier for them to hear if it wasn't coming from their mom,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. Like if they had
Yes.
discovered a book or if they'd had a lesson from a counselor at school or something, I think it would. This has been, I've been going around talking about this and dragging them with me since they were fairly little children.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's one of those like white noise things in the
Right.
background, but I hope some of it has been internalized. And it's good like shorthand speech where we can just use it as a like, I'll be like, okay guys, stop. Because they'll, if they're, my daughter really is a perfectionist, the one at college, and she worries about things, and I'll just be like, Claire, drops of awesome. And she'll be like, okay, all right. And then she'll tell me what are the good things. And she'll go back and I'm like, see, you're killing it. You're doing amazing. Let's put that other thing aside. And how does it feel when you focus on how many amazing things you did this year? She had health problems last year, and her freshman year wasn't everything she had planned for it to be. And she accomplished so much. So, but sometimes you have to help someone and take their hand and say, let's look at actually what occurred here, not at what didn't occur. We don't define ourselves by what we're not.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's the whole paradigm has to have just permeated through the way that you interact with them. And I mean, maybe that's even better than journaling their own drops of awesome or things like that. It's just part of their reality that they know how awesome they are, maybe.
Well, I feel like it's about modeling too, like more than anything that you
Right.
teach, because I'm really open with them about my own feelings, and I apologize to them a lot. Like when I do something that I feel like, oh, that was not great parenting, I'll go back and say, okay, reset. Like I'm really sorry. I feel like I was purposefully trying to make you feel bad about that, and that is not helpful for anybody. Let's go. And I'll talk about when I feel bad about myself. I'll be like, I am feeling horrible about myself. I know I need to jump out of this. Can you help talk me through? And so they will give me like the positive self-talk, and they will fill it in, and they will sort of, we do it as a journey together. I want them to clearly know that I don't have it all figured out. So I think honestly, my biggest strength as a parent is treating them like human beings, and like we are both on a journey together, and there is value that they can give to help me to grow. And hopefully there's things I can do to help them to grow. But that I am a fallible person who's trying my best. And I talk to them about going to therapy, and I've talked to them about, in child appropriate ways, about struggles we've had in our marriage, because I don't want them to get married and they have their first fight and think, oh, my parents' marriage was perfect. Oh no, like this is everything is all is lost. So I'll just say, yeah, me and your dad, we had a couple years that were really, really hard, and we fought and we stuck it out and we got through it. And like as things are going on, I'll be like, me and your dad just need some space right now. But then we'll talk to them about like, okay, we came to a resolution, things are fine. And they see us laugh together and flirt and work together, and they know things are good, but they also know that it's not something that happens automatically the minute you say, I'm gonna get married, everything will be perfect.
Yeah. I mean, the worst kind of mom would be a perfect mom. Like nobody wants a perfect mom. Everybody wants a human mom, like that would be terrible to have a mother who never made mistakes, because you would never be able to measure up.
Yeah, I think the most connected I've ever felt to my kids is when I've apologized for something that I didn't do great as a parent, and then we've been able to talk through it, and they've been able to really openly say, yeah, when you do this, this is how it makes me feel. I really would prefer, Mom, if you never do this again. And I say, that I'm sure that feels horrible. I want to never do that again. Let's work on it. Will you tell me in the moment if I'm repeating those behaviors? Can you help me to recognize it? Because I think I'm doing it without even noticing it.
Wow.
And they're very kindly willing and able to give me feedback as a parent. And I feel like it helps them feel safe and like they'll be heard, and that they can come to me with any of their own problems, because they know I'll take correction from them as a parent.
And that is where we will leave Kathryn today, but you can be sure I'll be including more of her wisdom on this podcast. For example, I'm sure you, like me, want to know more about what she's discovered in her journey parenting adult children. If you want more of Kathryn before our next episode together, you can visit dropsofawesome.com or buy her books and journals titled Drops of Awesome, Buckets of Awesome, and 523 Ways to Be Awesome on Amazon. Thank you so much for listening to the How She Moms podcast and for being part of this community. There are so many other ways for you to connect and hopefully also contribute. I share tips and ideas regularly on Instagram and Facebook at How She Moms. You can find past episodes and other resources at howshemoms.com. And you can always just email me directly at whitney@howshemoms.com. Special thanks to my own wonderful mom, Susan Singley, for recording my theme music. She played this song all the time when I was growing up, and to me, it's the soundtrack of motherhood.